The term boy mom has transformed from an innocent descriptor into an internet shorthand for some of the most unsettling content I've seen on social media. From mothers lip-syncing love songs to their infant sons.
I found my peace.
Boy mums, we gotta step up. We gotta realize that we are the problem.
To mothers crying about their son's future wedding as if it's a breakup.
Y'all do not understand the problems that this causes.
To mothers openly declaring that no woman will ever be good enough for their little man.
Aw, young love. I remember that feeling. My first boyfriend.
That's his mom.
Well,
That's not his girlfriend, that's his mom.
Ick. So let's talk about it. Now that the holidays are over, it's the perfect time to upgrade your gear for the new year. Whether you're getting back into a routine or setting new fitness goals, I've been using Raycon's bone conduction headphones and they are amazing. And you guys know I have been using Raycons for years, so I really appreciate them coming out with new and improved and really cool headphones as the years go on. So these headphones sit outside of your ears so you can listen to your music or podcasts while still staying aware of what's going on around you. Not to mention, they're super comfortable and perfect for workouts, walks, or just everyday life. And I've personally been wearing these in my morning workouts, usually on my incline morning walks. Or if the weather's nice, I'll walk outside. And the game changer about that is that I can listen to my playlist or podcast and I can still hear traffic or, in my case, wildlife around me. So safety and sound are all in one. And plus, they've got 13 hours of battery life and they're IP68 waterproof and dustproof. And they don't slip no matter how much you move. And here's the thing, Raycon gives you premium sound quality that rivals the big brands, but at half the cost. And over 3 million people already love them, including myself. And they come with a 30-day happiness guarantee. And right now, Raycon is ringing in the new year with a sale. So definitely grab them while you can and go to buyraycon.com/KMKBC to get 20% off site-wide. Thank you so much to Raycon for supporting the channel and sponsoring the video, and let's get back to it. So yeah, today I went through a rabbit hole, okay? I was on TikTok. I've had a lot of friends start to give birth, have babies, all this stuff, so my phone just thinks that I want to see that stuff. And besides the obvious, just seeing way too many kids online and parents taking advantage of that, we'll talk about that later as well, even though I've talked that to death. I've seen some serious toxic behavior, and many other people have seen very toxic behavior, specifically in boy moms. And I'm going to say toxic boy moms because there are far more amazing boy moms that outweigh the toxic boy moms. But we're talking about the toxic ones today, okay? Because that's the tea, all right? And yes, there are plenty of toxic fathers as well, being blatantly inappropriate with daughters and everything, but that is seen as bad. I think pretty much 100% of the world can see that as bad, and it's not looked in any positive way. But when we look at these toxic boy moms, it's a culture. It's like, it's okay with society, and that is weird to me and to a lot of other people. But I just wanted to say that as a disclaimer. I know the mommies watching this, I'm sure you are a wonderful boy mom and this isn't about you, okay? But if you watch this video and by the end you get offended by what I'm saying, I think we might need a little therapy, but we'll see, you know? I mean, let's just get into it though. So when first seeing and diving into this subject, I came across a very toxic boy mom, of course. And she's a very popular TikToker called Saccone Jolie. I don't totally know. Never seen her before, but she just popped up on my page. And my God, did it make me cringe. But she has millions of followers across platforms. And her main shtick is, you know, lifestyle vlogger and being a mom. But most of all, being a boy mom, even though she has daughters who will watch these videos later in life and see that their mom definitely doesn't love them as much as her son. But this video that she posted years ago now, but one that I have come across, she stated,
I never thought that I would be that toxic boy mom. I love my 4 kids equally.
Okay.
But that last little boy just hits different.
That is the most contradictory thing I've ever heard.
And now I feel like I'm having this existential crisis. Or I wouldn't be that mom, that toxic boy mom.
And she continued that when she thinks about her daughter's weddings, she gets excited. But when she thinks about her son's wedding, she wants to cry. Because like I said in the intro of this video, it's like they're going through a breakup with their son, which is f***ing weird.
So when I think about my daughters getting married, I get excited, right? Think about their dresses, planning their weddings. When I think about my son's wedding, I want to cry.
And then one of the most disturbing parts of that video is when she admits that her son punches and hits her daughters or his sisters, but she just lets it slide because he might be having a hard day.
He hits his sisters, he punches them. I'm like, maybe he's having a hard day.
And then doubled down by calling herself the new villain of TikTok and that she's, hashtag toxic mom and a proud boy mom. But that is so disturbing that she's so self-aware that she's like, yeah, I definitely favored him and I let him hit my daughters. And like, it's okay. I can't even imagine how those daughters feel. And like the relationship you're going to have with them, the lack of relationship you're going to have with them when they're older, it's going to shock you, I think. It shouldn't, but I'm sure it will, because that is extremely disturbing behavior. You're raising a son to think it's okay to hit girls, and that mom thinks it's okay. And it's just this whole just psychological shit soup. But luckily, the majority of the comments on that specific video are very negative towards what she's saying. One saying, quote, I'm dating a boy whose mom is exactly like you, and he plans on going no contact with his mom after our wedding. Exactly. Yeah, not only are the daughters not going to be in contact with you, probably the son will be too. Unless he's really clingy and he needs you, then that's even worse. Actually. And then another comment said, quote, I have a mom like this. We don't talk anymore, unquote, which is so true. And there's plenty more. But this video was just kind of the cherry on top. I went through so many other videos that were just as disturbing. And honest, the whole time I'm watching them, I just feel so bad for the daughters. Just icky. It's so icky and it makes me sad. And then there was the Aaron Carter lyric trend, which is just another weird trend of videos that involves moms holding their baby sons while lip syncing to Aaron Carter lyrics, saying, quote, you'll be his first kiss, his first love, etc., which in broad terms seems like a sweet sentiment, until you consider that it sets his second love up as a rival to his mommy. So future partners of the son are now seen as competitors to the mom from birth. It's just weird. It's just like, it's cool to love your son. Of course you're going to love your son, but it's like the way they go about it. It's like there's the kissing and the like, why do you need to be his first kiss? And why does that need to be a competitive thing with his future girlfriend? Like there's plenty of videos where it's just like, I'll be his first kiss, and it's just like, just know that I'll be his first kiss. It's like, what? There's too many trends like that, and it's just disturbing. It's like, we get it. You want to your son, like, and then there was the teaching my son to cook controversy, which is another viral video trend that gave me the ick, especially when I saw the caption of one of them saying, making sure my son can cook so he's not impressed by your daughter's lasagna. He's gonna need a home-cooked meal. Okay, bitch, what the, like, that, it's so weirdly possessive and it's just gross. It's just gross. And there's so many videos like that where like boy moms just hopped on this trend and they're like, yeah, my son's my boyfriend and I always want him to be with me and he can't ever be with another girl. And it's just like, but there was sparked backlash and a new counter trend emerged from that, which I love. And I think it was the Wilsons, at the Wilsons, who offered a healthier perspective and a better trend that was still cooking with her son, but saying, quote, teaching my son how to cook so your daughters don't have to deal with a man who thinks cooking is a woman's job and not a life skill. Now that's a model boy mom right there. Okay, that's healthy. That's great. And we love a man who could cook. You know, that's good. It doesn't all have to be a competition, okay? And then there was another trend that literally made my skin crawl, dude. And it is moms posting photos or videos with their sons of like an older age, like usually like a preteen or teenager, still underage, and it's your son, so it's weird. But it says, forced to be your mother, born to be your lover. That's a straight to jail card for me. Can't you flip that around with a dad and a daughter? That's jail. You're going to jail, dude. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, I don't know. What do I know? You know, what do I know? I don't have a kid. But I tell you what, wouldn't be saying that shit, because that's weird. And then not to mention, there's so many other trends or videos that I've seen. I've seen like a mom like literally making out with her infant son, and there was so much backlash on that. I'm not even gonna I don't know if there's a way we can completely blur it, but it's disgusting and so wrong. And it's like, yeah, of course you're like, your mom can peck you on the cheek or like do a little peck on the lips or something when you're a baby. This woman was making out with her baby, and it made me want to vomit. But it all goes deeper than just, oh my God, that mom just loves her son a little too much, a little creepy, but you know, it's all right, I guess. It can actually be a psychological and life-altering problem, because researchers and critics have identified consistent patterns in problematic boy mom content, like calling sons my first boyfriend or the only man who won't leave me. He will in the future, just wait, okay? Because you're crazy. And using romantic music over videos with infant sons and framing growing up as the longest breakup of your life, which is just disturbing. That's just disturbing language that these toxic boy moms are using. Not to mention videos with captions like, why would he take another female when he has me? And moms making inappropriate comments about their sons' bodies, including their genitals. It gets very disturbing. Not to mention the mother-in-law aspect where they have POV, me at my son's wedding, and videos showing jealousy toward future daughter-in-laws before they're even like a toddler, or laughing at or excusing sons' physical aggression toward sisters, like the example I gave before. And a therapist on TikTok under the username Mentally Unwell went viral explaining the psychological roots of the phenomenon on TikTok.
We've all heard of the Oedipus complex thing, which is basically just Freud saying that sons develop unconscious feelings of attraction early on towards their moms and a sense of rivalry with their dad.
And that brings me to the psychology of all of this, the impact this has on mother and son, and daughters and fathers, everybody. And that is when this closeness becomes enmeshment or covert incest or emotional incest. So the term covert was introduced by Dr. Kenneth Adams in his 1991 book, Silently Seduced: When Parents Make Their Children Partners. And according to the American Psychological Association, emotional incest is a form of emotional abuse where a parent uses a child for emotional needs that should be obtained from an adult partner. And Dr. Adams explained in a Psychology Today interview, quote, covert incest describes a relationship between a parent and child in which the child feels more like a romantic partner. Typically, the parent is motivated by the loneliness and emptiness of a troubled marriage, so he or she turns the child into a surrogate partner. There is not necessarily any kind of overt inappropriate touching, although I've personally seen a lot of that on social media, which is disturbing. And the quote goes on, but the relationship feels too close for comfort to the child, unquote. And he actually uses the word icky to describe how this feels, which I agree, the whole thing is just icky. Saying, quote, it just feels like it's too close. The child thinks, I shouldn't be sitting here watching soap operas with you, Mom, while you tell me about your sex frustration with dad, unquote. And obviously, like I said before, this goes both ways, fathers and daughters, or fathers and sons, or mothers and daughters. But this boy mom phenomenon is one of which has become okay and accepted, and that's my issue with it. And that segues into the sonsband phenomenon, or the son-husband phenomenon.
I'll always be the first woman in his life. She's just his little girlfriend.
Yeah, she's his girlfriend. I don't think she's trying to take your spot.
Even if she tried, she could never. Joshy loves his mommy. He'll always love me more than he loves her.
It's just a different kind of love. Like, you don't love your dad the same way you love your husband.
Okay, but she doesn't even cook or clean for him. Like, she's not doing his laundry. Why is he even dating her? The little girl's useless.
Looking sexy and beautiful.
Thank you.
Which describes when a mother treats her son as a surrogate spouse, expecting him to fulfill emotional roles typically reserved for a romantic partner. And signs of this include a son praised for being mature for your age and for managing mother's feelings, and the mother calling their son her emotional rock. Which again, there's some scenarios where this is okay, like if it's an appropriate relationship, but in a lot of these toxic mom relationships, it's like, okay, that's what your husband's for. That's not your kid's job. And it's also when children become privy to adult conversations that are inappropriate for children, and mothers becoming jealous of sons' friendships and or romantic relationships. And when sons feel obligated to prioritize their mother over their partners into adulthood. And Dr. Adams actually wrote a follow-up book specifically addressing this, called When He's Married to Mom: How to Help Mother Enmeshed Men Open Their Hearts to True Love and Commitment. So this issue is bad enough for a doctor to write a book about it, okay? But multiple sources confirm that marital dissatisfaction is a primary driver in this phenomenon. Is when parents face intimacy issues, the mother may unconsciously turn to her son to fill emotional needs. And the TikToker therapist I mentioned before mentions this, saying, quote, toxic mothers will often look to their children to meet emotional needs. If there is a male child, he can give the mother that attention and affection she wants from a male, unquote. And again, not necessarily sexual in nature, but inappropriate emotionally. And the pattern typically emerges from divorce or separation, emotionally unavailable or abusive husbands, or the parent's own childhood trauma or mental health struggles. And as Psych Central notes, quote, enmeshment can be rooted in divorce where the parent felt vulnerable and sought comfort, love, and connection from their child, unquote. And while Sigmund Freud has been largely discredited, his and Raymond de Saussure's concept of Jocasta complex, which is named after Oedipus's mother, who unknowingly married her own son after he killed his own father and became king. That's a whole other thing. Really disturbing story. But the Jocasta complex describes mothers becoming emotionally possessive of sons, viewing them as substitutes for partner connection. And modern psychologists focus less on these sexual interpretations and more on attachment theory, boundary violations, and narcissistic supply, which is that children are used as sources of validation, which segues perfectly into that toxic mother-in-law. You know what I mean? But it's these women that need validation from their sons, that like need them to tell them that, they're the best woman in their life and they'll always be number one in their life. It's just, narcissistic red flag numero uno. And it's actually interesting because research does confirm that gendered favoritism is widespread and measurable. Because there's two sides to this. There are daughters that are being ignored or treated differently just because they are girls. And mothers are twice as likely to be critical of daughters versus sons. And the 2022 Institute for Family Studies survey found that youngest sons are most likely to report being the favorite, which is around 44%. But the daughters of these particular toxic boy moms often serving as scapegoats, absorbing blame to preserve the mother's perfect self-image. And research shows disfavored children experience with low self-worth and feelings of rejection and inadequacy, and a giving up mentality, feeling like they can never be worthy, and a very skewed sense of identity, defining themselves in relation to the favored sibling. And not to mention lower self-esteem that persists into adulthood. And according to Psychology Today, narcissistic mothers may perceive daughters as threats and competitors rather than children to nurture, with saying, quote, if attention is drawn away from the mother, the child may suffer retaliation, put downs, and punishment. And the mother can be jealous of her daughter for many reasons: her looks, her youth, material possessions, accomplishments, education, and even the girl's relationship with the father, unquote. So basically, don't have kids if you're a narcissistic piece of shit, okay? Work that out in therapy before you go on to procreate. That's all I'm saying, you know? I feel like everybody should go through at least if not multiple therapy sessions before they have children, just to like work out their shit. You know, I've gone through tons of therapy. I don't even have kids, but like that comes up. I'm like, I want to make sure all this is in order before I am to procreate, because I don't want to push onto my kid anything that I'm struggling with, you know? Like, we all have our demons. None of us are perfect. But I feel like that is a giant cause of this, is people just being completely unaware of their narcissistic tendencies. And we live in a very narcissistic society now. I think with social media especially, the focus is on you, or like that's the whole point of everything. And you need validation from people, and you need validation from yours. And if you're not getting validation from other people, then some people, especially narcissists, are seeking it from their children, and that's not fair to the kids. And daughters of these particular mothers may even go to experience thwarted ambition syndrome, where mothers actively sabotage career aspirations. And the effects carry long-term implications for job performance, school achievement, and interpersonal relationships. But who would have thunk, you know, that your actions and decisions as a parent heavily affect your child as they grow into adulthood? It's weird, crazy concept, you know, that your kids actually grow up. And speaking of growing up, that brings us into the manchild phenomenon, because sons raised in enmeshed relationships often become adults who feel unable to make choices without mother's input or approval, or struggle to function independently or manage adult responsibilities, or expect partners to mother them by doing all the cooking or cleaning or emotional labor, and have learned that others will pick up their slack or pick up after them and display deep insecurity masked by immaturity and emotional unavailability, or breaking promises and missing appointments, and they can't manage their own emotions, and eventually leaving partners unsupported. So essentially, the mother load, pun intended, of red flags and least attractive qualities in a man, basically. So these toxic boy moms are raising future nightmare partners. And we see that time and time again on TikTok, because, you know, we see the moms with the little kids and everything, and we're like, okay, that's really weird. But then we go on to see grown adult men and their partners complaining about them, and that just goes back to that guy's mom back then, maybe not posting it on TikTok, but she was clearly that toxic boy mom in her own right. And Dr. Adams also notes that men from enmeshed families often experience sexuality being wounded by inappropriate emotional closeness with mothers, which is really, really bad for their future partners. And all of this coincides with another trend, or another not so great quality of parents, which is the helicopter parent, which falls under with toxic moms, because they just, you know, need to be around their sons. They need to make sure their sons are okay. They need, you know, it's like over-parenting. And peer-reviewed studies confirm that long-term damage of overparenting or helicopter parenting shows elevated levels of entitlement, higher rates of narcissism later in life, increased depression and anxiety, very poor self-regulation and emotional dysregulation, and lower self-esteem, life satisfaction, and academic performance. Not to mention career unreadiness and identity confusion, which all makes sense. I mean, if you're attached at the hip with your child, in this case, your son, and you're not letting him go live his life the way he wants to go live it, he's going to grow up to be an adult that just can't take care of himself, and that can't self-regulate or do any of the things that adults are supposed to do. And West Virginia University found that overparented children struggle with transitioning to adulthood due to low mastery, self-regulation, and social competence. And that brings us to these boys becoming adults and how their moms respond accordingly, aka toxic as fuck mother-in-laws, which is a whole other subculture on TikTok and YouTube, everywhere. Basically, it's just, that's a fun one to get into. And hopefully you don't have that in your life. Hopefully you don't have a toxic mother-in-law in your life. But if you do, Godspeed, you know? But that connection is very direct, with mothers who view sons as emotional partners will view their sons' wives as romantic rivals. And Dr. Sylvia McCuckey-Enyart, a family dynamics researcher at the University of Iowa, explains, quote, hashtag boy mom culture puts sons in the role of romantic partner rather than child. It's not surprising that moms who view their bond with their sons like this eventually come to see their son's wife as the enemy or other woman out to steal her man, unquote. And when enmeshed sons marry their mothers, the toxic mother-in-laws, typically view partners as competitors and threats, criticize and undermine daughter-in-laws, create loyalty tests that put sons in the middle, and resist natural development separation, and make decisions unilaterally about grandchildren, which I've seen so much on TikTok about, and treat the marriage as temporary while the mother-son bond is permanent. And research actually does confirm that mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationships are more stressful for both women than daughter and mother relationships. And the r/just no mother-in-law subreddit has become a phenomenon in and of itself, with hundreds of thousands of members sharing patterns like boundary violations, competition for sons' attention, wedding interference, undermining parenting decisions, and the mama's boy dynamic where husbands won't set boundaries. I highly recommend you read this subreddit if you're bored and you just want to read some steaming hot tea. Okay, I'm just looking at it like, oh my god, I'm so glad I have a good mother-in-law. Holy shit. Because the amount of incompetent men and just helicopter mother-in-law psychos, it's abundant. Let's just say that. And some community wisdom from that specific subreddit quotes, it's easier to dump a mama's boy than to divorce a mama's boy. And both of those are easier than trying to change a mama's boy. But the broader ethical problem underlying toxic boy-mom content is that children cannot consent to being featured online. And I know I have talked this to death on my page, but I think it's very important and it does coincide with this entire topic. And I stand behind, if you are posting your child online for monetary gain, boy or girl, and know the implications and negative effects of doing so, you are not a good parent. And your children deserve their privacy. Okay, full stop for me. And if that's not enough for y'all or anything, one of the most damning statistics is that according to French lawmakers, over 50% of photos on pedophile forums come from content initially shared by parents themselves. And former children of momfluencers are increasingly vocal about it. One being Sherry Frankie, the daughter of imprisoned momfluencer Ruby Frankie, or 8 Passengers. I've talked about that. Saying, quote, if I could go back and do it all again, I'd rather have an empty bank account now and not have my childhood plastered all over the internet. And she testified to Utah's legislature that, quote, no amount of money I received has made what I've experienced worth it, unquote, which I don't even need to hear it, but that's all I need to hear. I don't know about you. And there's also Cam, or @SoftScorpio on TikTok, now who's 23, described developing, quote, really bad paranoia about who's watching me, unquote, from childhood content that was posted of them. And she received disturbing messages from older men who, quote, saw you riding your bike, she said, and, quote, I needed a hand to hold. I didn't need a phone in the corner of the room recording me, unquote. And I just get the biggest ick. Dude, I get the biggest ick when I see parents like recording their kids, especially if they don't know it, and then posting it, or if they're like disciplining their kid or something's going wrong or something. I'm like, God, that's going to be on the internet forever. And, you know, God forbid they grow up and they see that they were like throwing a fit or like getting hate online when they were like 5 years old or something. It's just so unhealthy and so unnecessary. And probably the worst case that I have ever gone over, and I did a whole video about this, but it is the Ren Eleanor case, where 3-year-old at the time, Ren Eleanor, who had 17+ million TikTok followers, or her mom did, and all of the concerns that emerged about her content specifically. It was just so blatantly over-sexualized and horrible with her, like their bathing videos and her eating food that looked like, and it's just like with over like hundreds or millions of saves, and you just know that those saves are not other moms or kids. Those are all disgusting men, And former FBI agent Tracy Walder called it, quote, non-consensual exploitation, unquote. And the case sparked the #SaveRen movement, leading many parents to delete their children's content. And again, I went to town on that account during that time, and now luckily all that content was taken down and the account is banned, but that content is still out there somewhere because the internet is forever, and it drives me nuts that parents don't think about that, or they just choose to blatantly ignore it and just not care. It's for their own gain, or just blatant narcissism. So seeing these toxic boy moms post about how they love their sons more than their daughters and posting their obsessive, borderline incestual behavior just makes me sick. Because newsflash, your poor kid is going to grow up, and not only is he going to be messed up mentally because of how you raised him, he's also going to have his childhood and your weird ass behavior towards him plastered on the internet forever. Him or her, I'm talking broadly now, but in this specific video, we're talking about toxic moms. So it's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. But these are the eventual consequences for your current actions. And what's also interesting is that the #BoyMom has over 8.4 million Instagram posts specifically versus the 2.7 million for #GirlMom. It's like, what is that? What is that? And I don't know if there's anything behind that, but it's just like, boy moms are much more outspoken and much more, proud. I'm not saying that girl moms aren't proud, but you know what I mean? It's just like it's like a point of contention. It's like, I have a boy. Oh, you have a girl. Oh, isn't that sad? It's just weird. It's weird. Or they're just obsessed. They're posting their boys constantly and constantly. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And not to mention the gender reveal party phenomenon, which I think is so, it can be cute. It can be cute. And there's some that are like really cute and quaint, and it's nice. But there is gender disappointment. I understand that. But there are so many people that post like the worst gender reveals ever, where like the dad's pissed off that he's having a girl. And that's usually the case. It's like the really bad ones, or the mom is mad she's having a girl, or whatever. It's just, it's all weird. I'm like, why are we posting this on the internet? Who's this for? But as one writer in The Persistent observed, quote, the retaliation against this state of affairs is the very American phenomenon of the boy mom, the defiant mother of sons who wants everyone to know loud and clear that she was never hoping for a daughter, unquote, which is kind of what I'm talking about. It's just like, these toxic boy moms are just so outspoken about how boys are better than girls, how having a son is much better than having a daughter. And that just breaks my heart, And a lot of these moms have daughters or go on to have daughters. And they're like, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. And I'm like, those poor girls growing up. Luckily, I was blessed to have a mom who had boys and girls. And I feel like we were loved very equally. I didn't feel any of this weird shit from my mom. But I know plenty of people that have experienced this firsthand now, like even off of social media. And it just is like, why are you having kids if you know that you're like not gonna like a girl if you have it or whatever? It's just, I don't know. What do I know? But I do think it's possible to break the cycle, I don't know if anybody's watching this and is like, oh, maybe I am a little bit boy mommy. Maybe I need to check myself a little bit. I think that's good, And again, it's cool to love your kid. I think that's awesome. You should. And you should be looking out for them. And you should, hope that they have a great partner that's going to treat them really well. But you got to let them be. You got to let them be their own person. You can't marry your kid legally anyway. But I do think it's possible to break the cycle. And I think the first thing to that is just self-awareness. Like, notice if you feel rejected when your son prioritizes his partner, and examine if you're expecting your son to meet emotional needs your partner should, and check whether you're giving unsolicited advice or correcting your daughter-in-law. You know what I mean? And if your son calls asking for advice, respond with maybe, what does your wife think? Or what does your partner think? And redirect toward the marital partnership and avoid criticizing or correcting the daughter-in-law, you know? Like, again, it's good to be close with your kid. I'm so close with my parents, my mom and my dad, so is my brothers, so are my sisters and everything. I ask them about everything, but they always involve my partner in the conversation. It's not like, you know, there's not possession in it. But I do think a lot of it stems from just not, or maybe losing their own identity, or depending on their child for a new identity, or that is their identity, as being a boy mom. And that's like their whole being. And then when they grow up and go away, it's like, what am I? I need to be a boy mom. Like, I need to insert myself with their life as much as possible. So I think like stepping back and developing your own sense of self and identity is really important. And just, you know, therapy is great, you know, to like consider therapy to process feelings about letting go. Because I feel like a lot of parents in general struggle with that. I imagine it's hard once you have a kid for 18 years, 20 years, 25 years. Shit's expensive out there to buy houses. And I tell you what, like, it's hard to let your kid go. Or some parents are just like, say yeah, my mom bought me luggage, okay, for my 19th birthday. So there's that. But no, I mean, I needed luggage, just not like that. Anyway, but I understand to a point, but we're talking about the toxic unhealthiness of this. So, but again, Dr. McCuckey Enyart recommends, quote, letting your son know you're always there for him, but also letting him figure things out on his own, calling out bad behavior, and not letting him get away with things deemed as bad behavior. And she cautions women against investing their identity in being a mom rather than being a person who happens to be a mom. Because being a mom is awesome, cool, and I can't wait to be that one day. But make sure that you still have a sense of self. And I know it's probably extremely easy to lose your sense of self when becoming a mother. But yeah, don't put that pressure on a kid, you know, because that's a lot to put on a kid. And same goes to those enmeshed future men that had the toxic boy moms. I mean, you can grow up and, you know, maybe you're watching this and you're like, well, my mom was kind of like that. You know, she was like kind of all over me, hard to let go. You can, you know, check yourself too. Be like, I need to set boundaries and have some self-awareness, you know, work on my communication with my partner and my mom, you know. But, you know, I'm not a therapist, obviously. And any of these quotes are taken from actual, you know, psychologists and therapists and stuff. So it's not me saying that stuff. But just from an outsider looking in, you know, like emotional incest and enmeshment and toxic boy mom behavior aren't just buzzwords or TikTok discourse. They are documented psychological patterns with measurable outcomes. And it looks like the cycle is pretty predictable. We have emotional, unfulfilled mothers turn to sons for connection, and then sons become enmeshed and parentified, and then these sons become emotionally unavailable men who partner with women who then raise unemotionally unfulfilled daughters or enmeshed sons. And the pattern just continues, and the vicious cycle just continues. And it's just, you know, and obviously that's a very broad statement, but it's like, I feel like that cycle can break pretty easily. But it's like, I feel like that cycle can be broken. But that's not up to me. That is up to moms, basically, the toxic boy moms, and to the enmeshed partners out there. And along with all this, again, you know, children featured in this content, in any type of content, can't consent to being romanticized online, and daughters watching their brothers be preferred in said content will carry that wound. And the sons being positioned as surrogate husbands will struggle to form healthy adult attachments. But like I said, the cycles can break, and self-awareness, I believe, is the first step. And therapy helps. Honestly, coming from somebody that goes to therapy, okay? And to the mothers actively committing to being the best generation of mother-in-laws, show that change is possible, because there's an overwhelming amount of moms on social media that are determined to be the good boy moms, the good mother-in-laws, the ones that the daughter-in-laws can come to, and raising sons that are very capable of being really good partners. So I think those moms far outweigh the toxic boy moms. But, you know, we got to talk some tea on here. But let me know what you think. Have you seen a trend of this? Do you have experience with this? You know, is your mom like this? Do you have a friend's mom that was like this? Do you have a mother-in-law that's a little, you know, I don't know. Let's make it a safe space. Let's make it a conversation down below. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video. Okay?